What impressed you the most about how Master approached his rehab to get back for this season?
Well, just his attitude about it. He's so into his faith and never wavered in his belief system that he'd be fine and be back, and just the way he attacked it. When everybody else decided to go home, away from Columbus, he, on the other hand, decided to stay here, stay put, kind of put himself in his one-bedroom apartment and just went to work and never complained. Just whatever he could do, plus some, was his attitude. And so just, it doesn't shock me, though. He Master's the type of young guy that he will completely immerse himself into whatever he's doing. And so we expect nothing different with this rehab, and he did that and came back in good order.
Can you compare what he and Trey will give you in pass protection to what JK gave you last year? And also just how much does that determine how much playing time a running back gets or how many snaps they get, what their role is? Well,
as far as determining playing time, if you can't pass protect and you can't play on third down, well, then you're very limited. And what we're trying to do is have guys that are complete players, every down players, if you will. And now, but, at the same time, if there's some situations that you're better at than others, and then you do what you got to do. But we're trying to develop complete players that are every down running backs, and so pass protection is very large and it's very big in our offense as far as keeping our quarterback upright and keeping him clean. One of the things both of them do, they're longer bodied guys, which kind of helps them as far in relation to JK being a little shorter and shorter arms and things like that, and the stature, but and they're bigger. They're bigger guys. Maybe not weight wise. Trey's about the same, but Master's definitely bigger weight wise, so they can hold up. They can hold up a little bit longer just because of the sheer size.
Next up, Dave Biddle with 24/7 Sports and Brendan Gulick on deck. Dave?
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
What stands out about Trey Sermon's running style, and what are your expectations for him this season?
Well, he's a little upright at times. We got to get him to drop his pad level a little bit. He's kind of a longer strider guy. He's a guy that's a little deceptive as far as his speed. It doesn't look like he's really going, but then all of a sudden you look up and he's covering a lot of ground and he's covering space. So a little deceptive that way. He's a lot longer as far as his stature goes than some of the guys we've had here in the past. JK, Mike, stocky, shorter build. Even Zeke was real big through his hips and his thighs. Trey's not like that. He's not as bulky as those other guys. But he presents a lot of issues. Trey does a great job. He's really good coming out of the backfield, catching the ball and running routes, and he's a very capable and able and willing blocker. From the film that we watched him coming in here. I think he's a tough guy. So yeah.
Is Xavier Johnson a guy to keep a close eye on this year? I know you got a deep, talented room, but he's a walk-on. But I know Coach Day's been talking him up. Is he a guy to keep a close eye on this year, Tony?
Absolutely, David. Bring him up. He's had an outstanding month and a half, if you will, since we really started rolling again. And he's a guy that's littered all over the special teams. He's extremely athletic. Here's a guy who's a team guy. He's played some defensive back since he's been here. He's been at receiver, came to running back, went back to receiver. Now he's back at running back. He's gaining weight. I think he's about 215 pounds, give or take. But another guy who understands, the routes and how to run routes and where he fits in the patterns and things like that, and continues to impress our entire staff. With just the way he comes to work every single day, and he's done a nice job. Now, where that'll go as far as reps and things like that, time will tell. But he's done a nice job. I'm very pleased with him, and I love the kid. He's extremely mature kid, and takes care of his business, and so excited about the prospects for X.
Thanks, Tony.
Next up, Brendan Gulick with Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated and Austin Ward on deck. Brendan?
Coach, thanks for the time here this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I know you're going to get a lot of questions about Master and about Trey, and for good reason there. But I was hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit more just about what's impressed you about the development process here for the rest of your room, because you certainly have got some pretty talented guys there.
Yeah, we do. Thanks for saying that. As all the attention is being garnered towards Trey, of course, being new, and Master, as you said, but Steele Chambers has also had a really good growth spurt as far as his maturity in our offense, understanding, and not that, he's eliminated some of that apprehension that he had as a young guy that is natural and normal. So he's grown up a lot, and he's continued to make plays. He's gotten, he's big. He's 200 and, don't quote me, but he's 223, 224 pounds. So he's another bigger bodied guy, and he's long. He's a perfectionist by nature, which is good, which is great, but also can also be harmful at times too, if it's not going exactly the way he wants it to go. But he's had a good, he's done well. And he's a guy that I'll be comfortable putting him in the game as well.
I want to ask you too about the legacy that JK and even going back to Zeke have left in your room. What are the things that you see that those guys did carried on now that they're gone?
I would say a couple things, really. I would say the way they take care of their bodies and just freakish about how they take care of themselves, as far as rehab and maintenance of their body. I'd also say the way they study the game. They're big film guys, and that's one thing that obviously impressed me with Trey as well, just throwing that out there with him. Really, really big film guy. And where you're starting to, you're getting text messages and calls at 11:30 at night where they're watching film, say, hey, coach, look at play number such and such, and what'd you see here? And just them trying to perfect their trade and their knowledge of the game, trying to understand what everybody's doing, in particularly offensive linemen and all the blocking schemes in the run game and in the pass protection schemes, and how they fit. And, they're students of the game, if you will. That's probably the best way to say it. Those guys are really students of the game and always trying to improve and find ways to improve and expect their coaches to help them improve. That's what we're here to do. And so they drive that way and it drives them. And so those are the things that I think, two of the things. Then I think they set a standard. They set a standard of how you practice. And if you want to play a certain way, then you better practice a certain way. And those guys did that. They didn't take plays off in practice. Those guys that would get beat on and beat up on a Saturday, and they turn around on Sunday, come back like nothing happened. On Monday's a day off, but on Tuesday, which are hard practices for us, they're physical and they're strenuous practices. Those guys never miss practice. And, the only way you get better is to play and be on the field. And those guys were always there. They never, they didn't take days off. They didn't take plays off. But that goes back to the training methods. It goes back to Coach Mick and following their lead and trusting what they're saying. It goes to Sean Barnhouse and his crew in the training room of following their lead and doing everything possible to get themselves ready to play, whether it be hydration, whether it be nutrition, whether it be sleep, whether it be the training room and ice tubs and massages, whatever it is. Those kids really took to that, and that's kind of the bar they've set.
Next up, Austin Ward with Letterman Row and Bill Rabinowitz on deck. Austin?
Do we have to hear Austin ask a question?
I know you're glad to see.
Austin, how are those Cowboys doing, man?
I've got a Border War book coming that I'll let you read when I'm done.
I got a Border War book too. We beat them, so we're good.
Yeah, don't mind this jersey back here. When it got me rattled. If you had gone back, I know that there are things that you can and can't say about injuries, but if we were talking in March after Master went down and Marcus had been a couple months into his rehab, would you have been surprised to find out that Master would be in the position he's in now, where it at least looks like he's closer to helping and being full speed than Marcus is?
Yes, and I'd be lying if I said anything otherwise. I say yes to that. However, also with all due respect, I'm far from being a doctor, and that's not my field, obviously, but knowing that injury or hearing about the blood injury and rehab times and things like that, that was very I was very surprised and happy that he came back the way he did, and good for everybody involved.
And Marcus was really, it seemed like he was turning a corner when he got hurt, and you guys, you weren't going to redshirt him. That decision had already been made. This setback for him, how has he handled it? When might he be available to you, do you think?
Yeah, we did have a minor setback with him, but he's coming back strong now. When he'll be back, I don't know that. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I just that's up to our training staff and Stu, our rehab guys, and they'll kind of tell me and Coach Day, here's what we got, here's what we're working with, and when he can come back and how much he can handle as stress loads and things like that. So I really don't know when he'll be back. I know, but I do know he's coming back and incrementally coming back a little bit more every single day. And so how fast that's going to be when it's full speed, again, I don't have an answer to that, unfortunately. But he's fine. Mentally, he's fine. He understands where he's at. And it is what it is. And obviously it's a setback, but you can sit and sulk if you want. But again, it is what it is. And so this is the hand that we're dealt with, and we make the best of it. And we get ourselves prepared to play when we can and do as much as you possibly can, much as Master did. You get yourself ready to go the best of your abilities and spend as much time as you humanly possibly can to get yourself prepared so when the time comes, you're ready to go.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Next up, Bill Rabinowitz with the Columbus Dispatch, and Jared Smalley on deck. Bill?
Hi, Tony. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I want to ask you about both Master and Trey. First about Master, how close is he to 100%? And also, even if he hadn't had the injury, he has big shoes to fill, obviously replacing a 2,000-yard runner potentially. How confident are you that even a healthy Master Teague is up to the job?
Well, I'm extremely comfortable with that and confident that he's up to the task now. To say he's going to rush for 2,000 yards, I can't say that. And the one thing you talk about is people always say, well, how are we going to fill this guy's shoes and how is he going to fill this guy's and that guy's shoes? But that's college football, right? I mean, at one point in time, you had Carlos Hyde, and then it was Zeke, and then Zeke left, and Mike filled in and did some good things, and then JK, and so it's the world we live in. And that's why young people come here, and that's why young men come here. That when it's their turn, and they get that tap on the shoulder that they're there to perform and do their job, and do it at a high level and win games and compete for championships. That's why you come to Ohio State. So yeah, I am comfortable and confident in Master, and obviously with Trey as well. And we would, if those guys couldn't play winning football for us here, not just winning football, but at the rate of speed that we feel we need to have to be successful, we wouldn't bring them here. And it's that plain and simple. And not only does everybody need to understand, the kids themselves first and foremost need to understand to hear the expectations, and they are high, and we make no apologies for that.
And how close is Master to 100%?
I think yeah, he's will continue to build his workload. Now what is that? Is that 60 plays, 70 plays? I don't know. He's ready for that, but he's if we played tomorrow, he'd play.
And in terms of Trey, obviously a talented guy, but it is an adjustment coming from Oklahoma. What's been the biggest adjustment that he's had to make, and what's impressed you the most?
Well, you'd probably have to ask him that question. I believe you guys are going to talk to him about what the biggest adjustment he's had to make. But for me, the way he attacked the playbook was impressive, and his ability to retain information very, very quickly, and then to transfer the information onto the field from the meeting room. And that's probably been the biggest thing for me. That was the most impressive thing coming in, is his ability to understand our whole offense and where he fits into the thing. And he spent countless hours. We spent countless hours together. He'd come out to the house and of course social distance, but he'd come out to the house and we would just go over stuff. And he's always on a quest for knowledge. And coach, what about this? What about this? So that was probably the thing that stood out the most to me, is his ability to retain information, retain our playbook.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Next up, Jared Smalley, WCMH, Channel 4, with Bill Landis on deck. Jared?
Tony, a pretty simple question, but probably not a simple answer. You have coached so many elite NFL quality running backs in your room, and you've had to every year figure out who plays. And I'm curious, what are the maybe the 2 or 3 things that serve in your mind as the difference maker of how a guy ends up as the guy that's first out, getting the most carries? What in your mind is the most important factor for a guy to win that job?
Consistency. The sheer consistency of what you're doing. And you can't be on that roller coaster and the highs and lows. Obviously you got to be able to make plays. Well, they are capable of making plays, or again, they wouldn't be here. But your consistency level of making the plays when the opportunity presents itself, and then obviously making a play when maybe something there's not there. The consistency of knowing what to do, when to do it, and then performing that duty. Maybe it's a pass protection. Maybe it's catching a wheel route. Maybe it's running tight zone or outside zone and making a play when it's there. And that all comes with the knowledge of the game and studying the game, so that when the opportunity does present itself, you've been there, you visualize and put yourself in that moment. And then so when it happens, you're able to prepare, you're able to succeed and produce and being able to do that in a consistent manner. And that's why we practice every day, the way that we practice. And, we have the opportunity to have such elite players all over the field at all positions that you're practicing against the best every day. And so if you can make plays every day against our defense, and conversely from our defense against our offense, well, then we like to think that you can make it when we get inside that stadium too. And so to answer your question directly, I just say the consistency.
And a question about Trey in particular. When you found out he was going to transfer from Oklahoma, I wonder how much you went back and studied his video from Oklahoma and what you saw as you tried to project and what he might be at Ohio State. What did you see in him back then that maybe opened your eyes? Well,
yeah, we studied all of it, and we'd be lying if we said we didn't. I mean, we studied all of it from his freshman year all the way through to his injury. Again, you saw a guy that we thought was tough. We saw a guy that we thought had the ability to make plays, and he did. He made some here, in the shoe years back. But the kid consistently, when he was in, he made plays. We talked a lot to the Oklahoma staff and guys that knew him. And again, I knew him because I recruited him. But from his college days, we talked to a lot of the guys from Oklahoma, and they had nothing but rave reviews about him and the way he prepared, and a team guy. His work ethic was impeccable. So all the things that we were looking for to fit our room, he showed.
Next up,
Yes, sir.
Bill Landis with The Athletic, and Dan Hope on deck. Bill?
Thanks, Jerry. Hey, Tony.
Hey.
When you have a taller back, guy maybe who runs a little more upright, is balance something that guys like that have to work a little harder at? And if so, like how do you coach guys through that so that they're not getting knocked off course as easily if guys are hitting them lower and they're running a little more upright?
Yeah, you're right. There is, that can be challenging at times to get them to drop their pads, but there's drills. We can run them in the blaster, you can run them through the chutes. You do a lot of bag drills, footwork drills, so they're not sprinters, if you will, like receivers. Okay, that are everything they do is vertical. There's a lot of horizontal movements that we have to be able to make, and so your feet have to be balanced underneath you. And that's drills and a lot of film work to show them here's the why, and keeping your balance and contact balance and things like that. So a lot of drills where he's running through things but they are running through things and you're just banging them and hitting them on the side and running through contact, running through bags with people holding them and actually running through some contact, things like that. So it's a process. It is definitely a process, but those guys, again, they're fine-tuned athletes. They understand what we're trying to do, so it's not like it's a foreign deal for them. So, but yeah, that can be challenging. And I always like to say this too. Say, well, how do you get a guy to really drop his pads if you're having trouble? Well, you get somebody take his face off of him one time because he's running too high. That'll do the trick a lot too.
And I guess on the flip side of that, a guy who probably doesn't have that issue is Miyan Williams. He's got a little lower.
No, Miyan's about 2.5 feet tall.
What stood out to you about him as he's gotten the pads on here the last couple of days and he's going through his first camp?
Miyan is tough. I mean, he will put his face on you. He's a high collision guy. He doesn't mind contact. Runs hard. You know, one of the things with him is he's such, you know, he's smaller in stature, extremely strong kid. But when he gets up in the line of scrimmage in the holes, they're losing. They can lose sight of him behind all those bigger bodies. And people will laugh and say, well, that's, you know, that's cliche. That's not real. Well, it's extremely real because they can't find him. And so I've been impressed with him. You know, it took him a little bit longer to understand the playbook and just how fast things go and in the college game and the magnitude of the playbook and how many things there are to know. And not just know on the periphery, but really know. And be able to the job description of every single one of those plays. And so, but he has really shown he's come a long way in the past week or so. He's really starting to really understand it more. And yeah, so I'm pleased with him and where he's going. And those kids love him. He doesn't say boo, doesn't say anything. You know, he just kind of takes it. And so you got to drag some things out of him when you're asking him questions. And if you ask him questions, just say, yes, sir, I got it. But so you got to kind of elaborate and tell them, okay, well, why do you get it? Well, why do you do this? And have them explain it. And the older guys are really good with him too, as far as helping him understand. But he wants to be a good player and do well. And so he's coming along and pleased we have him here.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Next up, Dan Hope with 11 Warriors and Tony Girdman on deck. Dan?
Hey, Tony, I imagine it had to be tough for Trey to transfer and then have to have this weight on whether you guys would actually get to play football. So how did you help kind of work him through that uncertainty?
Yeah, those were some long conversations that I had with he and his mother, and they were numerous. And because he was frustrated, the kid just wanted to play, and much like our other guys, you know. And but you know, he stayed the course and he didn't waver. He just said, hey, you know, I can only do what I can do and only handle the things that are right there in front of him on his plate. And so as we told him, just keep having faith and this thing's going to work out, as we kept telling all of our players. And just keep learning this offense, keep grinding, you know, stay positive because he's a very positive type kid. Don't lose that. That's one of his biggest attributes is he's extremely positive in nature. And don't lose that. And this is hard. It's hard for everybody. But we got to stick together, and as a unit, we got to stick together as a football family and football team. And he just knew that if he needed something to lean on, that I was here for him the best that I could be. And I don't, you know. And I told him I don't have all the answers how this thing is going to go. I don't, but I do know that whatever it is we're going to do it. What's ever in your best interest, and as a staff and then as your position coach, and so he's been great. He really has, and. Again, he's a very positive kid by nature, so I'm excited. I'm excited for him. So things are starting to work out.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Next up, Tony Girdman with Buckeye Scoop and Stephen Means on deck. Tony?
Hey, Tony. I'm wondering, who's the leader in your room other than you, like during meetings?
Other than me? You know, right now I'd probably say Master, but, you know, X speaks up a lot, you know, and his personality is lending himself to that, and because he's become more comfortable in our room, and he knows he's gained a lot of respect of his teammates, not just his coaches, but his teammates, and respect of the guys. So he speaks up quite a bit, and in our reality, Trey is starting to kind of come out now. You got to understand, Trey's played more football than anybody in that room. He really has. And so with that comes a vast knowledge of college football and the speed of the game and, you know, and what comes with that. So, and so he's starting to kind of speak out more and things like that, which is good. And took a little bit of time just for him trying to figure out where he fit in the grand scheme of things, being a new guy. But he's starting to speak up. So I would say that Master is probably the one that everyone kind of looks to and, you know, say, hey, what about this? Because, again, he's the elder statesman in that room, if you will, as far as the length of time in that room with me. But so just kind of continue to develop that whole room as leaders, you know, in their own space and in their own way. And And that's a chore unto itself to be able to get guys, hey, you need to speak up more. But then we got to give them the platform to do that. And I try to do that in that room to give everybody a little bit of a platform so they can speak up and lead in their own way.
And then a change of pace for you. I'm sure you've seen him quite a bit in practice. What do you think of Pete Werner as a linebacker?
Ooh. Yeah, well, what Pete's a heck of a player, and he can run. He's agile. He's tough. He's a physical guy. He presents some issues for my backs as far as blitz protection because he is long and he's athletic enough that he can pick it, get on an edge and beat you on an edge. But at the same time, he's physical enough and strong enough that if he wants to, kind of pin his ears back and run through your stripe or your helmet, he can do that too. So he presents some problems, but what a team guy, and he's a great leader in our locker room and for our football team.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Next up, Stephen Means with Cleveland.com and Tim May on deck. Stephen?
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Hi.
You've used the two-back system at plenty of times in the past before, but to recruit to that kind of philosophy is a different situation. When you're going out there and you're looking for that, how important is it not only for those guys to kind of buy into that idea, but also complement each other?
Well, I think, if you're forthright and honest with what you're doing, and everybody knows right on the front end, this is what we're doing and here's why, it usually works out for those that are willing to do that. And for those that aren't, well, then they get off the ship real fast, right? So to say, is it hard? I don't know if it's hard. It just depends on your approach to things. And my approach has always been to be as honest and forthright as I can. And then here's why we're doing what we're doing. If it's one guy, here's why it's one guy. If it's two guys, here's why it's two guys. And here's the type of guys we're looking for. So, to say is it hard? It depends who you talk to, I guess. To me, I don't think it's hard. You just tell them what it is, and you find the guys that are willing to be involved in that.
And are you looking for similar styles or just complementing styles?
Again, you don't want the same player, obviously, but you want guys that, again, as I said earlier in this session here, that you want guys that you can develop to be complete players. And some guys' skill sets may lend itself to be maybe he's a little bit better in this area than this guy. But both of those things can be developed and hopefully developed at an elite level. But to get the same guy, no. But there's going to be a lot of similarities too, just based on what we do as an offense. You better be able to run the ball in between the tackles. You better be able to make some plays out in space as well and on the perimeter. You better be big enough where you can hold up in pass protection. But at the same time, a guy that we can put you out and use you out of the backfield to catch some balls. And if you're a guy that's maybe not as good as maybe you're a better pass receiver than I am, as I will continue to work on that skill set. But that's more your cup of tea than mine, if you will. So we can kind of balance it out that way if that answers your question.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
We got time for two more questions. First, Tim May with the Tim May podcast / Letterman Row, and then Patrick Murphy on deck. Tim?
Thank you very much, Jerry. By the way, Tony, you lived the border war, so you don't have to write a book about it. I wanted to ask you this.
Thank you very much for that, by the way. Right? I mean, you're right. I did.
Yeah, you're the guy that they'll be interviewing about the border war, but I digress. Number one, if you guys under contract, you coached under contract, have you opted into the 5% cut for the year, or just what's kind of the status there? And what do you think about about this situation and some of the sacrifices people are having to make?
Well, first of all, again, as I said way back when it started, really appreciate all the first responders and the people that are, working every day and diligently working to keep us safe and putting their lives on the line every day with their families and things like that. So really much respect to them. Full disclosure, yeah, I did opt in. And that's not to say those that do or don't, and doesn't make them bad or doesn't make me better. This is something that I decided to do and thought it was the right thing moving forward. It's unfortunate where we're at. but it is what it is, and we just have to make the best of it. And our players have been fantastic, as have the families that of our players, as far as keeping themselves safe. We continue to have great results in our testing, and so our players have been great. I know that there's some coaches, Coach Day even mentioned there's coaches that have stayed in hotels just because they have children school age and have made those sacrifices. And but again, if it's important to you, if we say it's important to us, then we'll do the things that we need, that we feel necessary to show how important it is to us. And that doesn't mean that someone else has to agree or disagree with it. Every man has to do it his own way. So,
yeah.
But yeah, some coaches have had to make those sacrifices, monetarily, maybe not staying in the home, staying in homes, or whatever it is. And guys have done the things that they feel necessary to do. But yeah.
The other thing, just from a general view of the offense, a lot of people are excited about where this offense can go this particular year with the dynamic guy you fellas have at quarterback. You figure Trey Sermon. I mean, you watch video on him. He's got the ups. I mean, Master Teague, what he can do in the wide receiver core and tight ends. And I'm just wondering, and then of course that offensive line. But just as a coaching staff, are you excited about where this offense can go if in fact y'all hit the ground running, so to speak?
Yeah, I am. We got some dynamic playmakers all over the field. At least we believe that we do. And so now it's as far as it just goes back to doing the things in the confines of our offense and keeping the main things. I believe that. I think that we have a good enough football team that if we take care of the little things, as far as just how we go to work every day, and practicing at a certain rate of speed, and not turning the ball over, and self-inflicted wounds with penalties and things like that, we should be fine. But again, everyone's going to say that this time of year. And so, don't want to get too far over our skis and get ahead of ourselves, but how do we get better today? And that's the main thing. Today is Tuesday. How do we get better today? And
is it obvious? Yeah. Is it obvious? So you've got a veteran at quarterback. I mean, what's the biggest difference you see in just that guy running the show?
His leadership. That's the thing that's shown up the most to me. Obviously, he was extremely athletic, can do so many things with his feet and his arm, but his overall leadership of our entire program has been the thing that has stood up the most to me. And now he has really taken Buckeye Nation, and he's taken the Ohio State football program and wanted to be the face of it, and not only be the face of it, be the face of it in a positive manner, and to represent this place in our program the way that he has is a tribute to him. It's a tribute to his family. It's a tribute to his relationship with Coach Day and being able to articulate the message that Coach Day espouses for our entire program. And so really, really proud of Justin, the young man that he's developed into since his time here.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
And we have time for one more question from Patrick Murphy with 24/7. Patrick?
Hey, Tony.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
You were discussing recruiting towards a platoon group at running backs a few months ago. I'm curious when and how you make that decision. You've done it before with JK and Mike. Last year, obviously, it was more JK. What indicates to you whether you want to have one guy handling the load or whether you want to split it up between 2 or 3 guys, however it may be?
Again, it goes back to consistency and, who do we feel, not just who, but how many guys do we feel can really play at the level that we feel is necessary to win games at a high level like we want them to, and produce at a high level like we want them to. And that shows itself and lends its hands at practice. And so that's kind of, to say how it's going to go, I don't know. I know that everyone says, well, talk to Coach Wilson, he said this. Well, then okay, well, maybe it goes that way. We'll see. I don't know how it's going to go yet. I have a pretty good idea. I have a very good idea of what it's going to probably look like. But a lot of it just depends on how again, the consistency in practices and the things that game plan lends itself to, and how those guys fit into it. So the next question you're going to ask me is, okay, what's the plan, right?
Well, I mean, that would be ideal.
Well, I'm not going to tell you. No, I don't know. I have an idea, but that'll iron itself out here in the next couple weeks.
Okay. Tony, you've been very gracious with your time. If you have time for one more question, I'd like to get Jeremy Birmingham in for one question.
Anybody but Jeremy, I can do it.
Jeremy?
No. Go ahead, man.
Hey, Tony, from a personal perspective,
Yes,
how
sir.
rare is it to have a relationship with a player after he's signed elsewhere? Like to continue a guy that you recruited, how unique is it to carry that relationship forward?
With all due respect, Jeremy, how rare is it for me? It's not unusual for me. I can't speak for anybody else. It's not unusual for me whatsoever. I mean, and again, it's not with everybody, but there's certain kids that you just build a bond with, and it's not like you're talking to those kids every day or even every week. But if I'm assuming you're talking about Trey Sermon and that relationship that started so many years back, and we had a need. There were some things that he needed or felt he needed, and it fit our needs, and so. It's kind of like, well, I know what that guy is over there, and I know what these people are over here. So, and that was a relationship that was a positive one, and it ended on a positive note with us going one way and him going the other. And so it was an easy transition as far as getting to know each other, and it wasn't like we had to reestablish this deal and figure out what went wrong, because nothing went wrong. It just is what it is. And but I think if you do things right, and if I believe that if you do things the right way and you're forthright and you're honest and you get the same level of respect that you want to have, you get the same level of respect from the other side, that everybody understands there's a business side of this too. And if things are done properly and the relationships are real and transparent relationships, and when I say they're unconditional relationships, meaning that if just because you don't do what I want you to do doesn't mean I think you're a bad guy. It's just, it is what it is, and those relationships are unconditional. That they have a way of coming back to you later if the situation presents itself, and that's kind of what happened with Trey. But to say that if anybody's doing it another way, I'm not saying that's wrong or bad. It's just each his own.
I guess, is that something that you feel is cultivated at Ohio State? Because obviously I cover the Buckeyes, so I don't really see it everywhere else. But between Trey and then Antoine Jackson in the last couple of years, it's two very unique situations where in the recruitment, they were very close to choosing Ohio State and then ended up there anyway. And I just wonder if that's a unique thing with your coaching staff.
I don't know. Again, I don't know what that's happening in other universities and institutions and programs, but I do know here that, not to put myself in this category, but I can talk to you about the other, 9 assistant coach and full-time coaches and the head coach, that those relationships with our coaches are very transparent and they're real. And it's not just football, and there's a genuine care for young men and their lives and building their lives and the mentorship that comes along with it. We just happen to be able to do it in the name of football, but they're very transparent relationships with our entire staff. And so does it shock me that someone may say that about our staff? Not once. It would shock me otherwise if they said anything other than that, to be honest with you. Just knowing the men of character that Coach Day has established on this staff, and so it's an honor to work with those guys. It's an honor to work for Coach Day and with Coach Day, and because they're real relationships and they're real conversations every single day, and some of them are very hard conversations, but that's okay. That's part of being transparent and having unconditional respect and love for one another is to be able to have those transparent, sometimes hard conversations. And I think if you were to talk across the board with our staff, you would find that the same conversation we have with our players are the same conversations that we have, like I have with my 3 sons. They're the identical conversations. It doesn't mean you got to like them, but they're real. And at the end of the day, when those kids know that you care about them, what will they not do for you? And if you ask the players to open up their hearts to you, then we better be willing to do the exact same thing, or once again, it's a one-way street, and that's not unconditional.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing, and come visit us over at BuckeyeGrove.com for all the best Ohio State information on the web.